Can you grow mushrooms without actually growing mushrooms? Yes, as silly as it sounds, you absolutely can. And many people just simply don't know about it. So in this video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about how to do that. And it's easier than fruiting using Uncle Ben's tech or something like that, because there's no fruiting involved in the techs that I'm going to show you guys today. What is up, everybody? This is Mycophile Sage checking in here today. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. So as I said in the intro, today's video is all about growing mushrooms without actually fruiting. So that's the main point. And for various reasons, people may want to not fruit. For example, you don't have enough space in your place, or you want to keep things on the down low. You want to maximize the umami content in as little space as possible. And these techs are very, very good for that. In addition to that, these are all exotic species, and if you were to fruit these species, they are more finicky than the regular core lovers that everybody grows, GT, B+, so forth. But in addition to that, they also have a different flavonoid profile, and in my opinion, and in the opinion of many others, superior flavonoid profile to core lovers. So you will be getting two main benefits with these methods, in that one, you don't have to fruit, so they're easier and take up far less space than a fruiting chamber, and two, you will be producing a superior flavonoid profile, at least in my opinion, than with core lovers. So as you guys can see here today, I have 5 different species of mycelium. So right here we got some semps. And by the way, guys, for these terminologies that I use on this channel, if you don't know what species I'm talking about, like Florida grass lovers or Mexican grass lovers, I got a link in the description. It's going to take you to a sort of reference key, and it's going to say what exactly those species are, because I like to use sort of these special terms on YouTube only. Okay, so I got semps and I got core lovers. These are rusty whites. And I also have some Florida grass lovers, and I have some Mexican grass lovers. And this is also a Florida grass lover, but a year old. So you're going to be seeing some old grain jars, which are completely viable because it's a part of the tech. You wouldn't say that with core lovers now, would you? So over here, finally, we have some zaps. And to be honest, I don't even know why I'm showing zaps, because I'm not going to be talking about zaps. So we're going to put them off to the side. So the main 2 techs that we're going to be talking about here today are truffles, aka stones, and technically they're called sclerotia, but we're going to stick with truffles because it's just more easier to stick in your mind. So we got 2 species of truffle producers. I'm going to be covering those as well. And we also have semps, okay? And these are going to represent a concept called myceliated grain. So far in the channel, I have made tons of videos on truffles. Check out my sclerotia playlist if you guys are interested in learning. I pretty much cover all there is to know about how to grow them and how to also fruit them. So we're going to quickly cover the truffles, and this is going to be the main interest here because I haven't talked about it so far on this channel, is myceliated grains. So back to the truffles. We have 2 species here, Florida grass lovers and Mexican grass lovers, and they are both sclerotia producing species. Sclerotia are sort of a defense mechanism by the mycelium to sort of survive in the face of natural disasters like floods, fires, that kind of thing. I call these grass lovers because they usually grow, places where there's clay and usually some grass, maybe some wheatgrass, that kind of thing, in the wild. And their range goes from anywhere from around Mexico all the way to the southern states of the United States. So anyways, that's not all that important. I want to talk to you guys quickly about which one is the best for truffle production. You want to get Florida grass lovers. Again, terms are in the link. Check the reference key. And we also have Mexican grass lovers. These can also produce, but not all of the sort of strains available of these guys are good sclerotia producers. Whereas with the Florida grass lovers, all of them, for example, ATL7, and the classic Florida grass lovers, those are the 2 main strains. Those guys will do very, very good in terms of sclerotia production and fruit production. And also Galandoy, that's also the same species. That's just a mislabeling error that has sort of lived on past its due date. So I'm going to quickly show you guys how these guys are. So as you can see, we have some stones or some things growing here, and this is the agar wedge itself. And the reason that I wanted to show you guys is because usually I shake up my grains, maybe once I get a little bit of growth, I'll shake it up, and then maybe I'll even shake it up again at one point. With these guys, I was away for a month, so I was not able to do that. So this is a perfect opportunity to show you guys how the mycelium looks, because a lot of people, first time growers, will say, whoa, This mycelium looks all sorts of insane. There's like metabolites all over the place and stuff like that. I understand. That's exactly how this is supposed to look. Now compare that to a coilover mycelium, right? This is the one everybody likes to grow. It's very, very different. It's much more uniform, it's white, etc., etc. These guys can take on all sorts of interesting colors, and we got some sclerotia here. So, but if you go over here, you see that the mycelium is very similar to coilovers, right? And that's because this is the new mycelium. So it takes a little bit of time for them to start growing sclerotia. Now, again, it does depend on genetics, because good sclerotia producers will have very, very good genetics. They'll produce a ton of sclerotia. This thing will be full of stones by about 2 weeks easily, right? And there's a whole industry of sclerotia producers in certain countries of the world. And so there's a lot of research, sort of, at least in the citizen sense, in the private world, there's a lot of research done. This is not a new thing at all. People have been doing this for a long time. But I wanted to basically show you guys the new mycelium, and here is the uncolonized bit. So I actually left this in the fridge overnight so that it doesn't fully colonize, so I could show you guys this for the striking difference. You see old mycelium and then new mycelium there. As you can see, the old one has more truffles, and the new one though also has some truffles coming in, and that's because this is a multi-spore plate. So this is not like a clone, especially, even though clone is also multi-spore, or an isolate or anything like that. This is pure multi-spore. So what does that mean? It means there's many, many different fruiting strains in here, or I should say truffle producing strains inside here. So not all of them are going to be equal. Now, as I said earlier, some genetics produce a lot within the 2-week mark. So like they'll start producing way before it starts turning yellow. And if you look around here, in this part, we don't see many good producers on the new part. So it's not necessarily the best for sclerotia producers. But over here, we seem to have some truffles coming in newer parts of the mycelium. So yeah, that's basically it. So how long can you keep this? How long should you keep this before? How long does it take for the truffles to grow? These questions I'm going to quickly answer here. First things first, all you got to do is, it doesn't matter what grains you use. If you could use it for coilovers, you could use it for sclerotia. And then all you got to do is take those grains and then inoculate it with your preferred method. I used an agar wedge just because it's a little safer, but if you have clean spores, you got clean spore syringes, you could totally use this, use those. You could also use liquid culture, etc., etc. So yeah, that's basically it. And in terms of time that you want to leave them for at least a month and a half before harvest. Now, again, as I said, there's been an industry surrounding this for decades now. It's been done. People make, lots of money from it in certain countries. And so it's pretty much known, although not scientifically proven, that they do get tastier over time, right? Their umami richness, their flavonoid content will increase over time. But nobody knows exactly how long it takes, but you can find batches that are over a year old, and everybody that's tried it will certainly tell you that yes, they are tastier, sort of like how difference between GT and PE. PE is pretty much, by everyone that tries it will tell you that it is way, way stronger in flavonoids than GTs, oysters. So I want to show you guys an example here. This is actually a year old. This is from January 13th, but not this year. This is from 2023. So it's been over a year now. Since I've inoculated it, and it's finally starting to show signs of bluing. So I wouldn't really go past a year. I would just leave it like that. And honestly, these aren't good genetics. This was the first time I was trying out this clone, and it's not very good. Or it could be actually slightly contaminated. I've always wondered, because of the way the mycelium's growing, I feel, and the fact that there's not many sclerotia here, I feel that there might be some kind of bacterial infection going on there, which is sort of what happens. If you find your sclerotia not to be growing, that's usually a sign that there's some kind of contam. But these guys are doing absolutely fine, and I'm going to be spawning these to bulk later on so I could fruit them. That's a whole other thing. And over here we have our second sample. These are Mexican grass lovers. Now, as I said, well, the thing about Mexican grass lovers is that not all of them produce a lot of sclerotia. And so in this one, you barely see much sclerotia, but you see that little, like, they're a lot darker in color. These are sclerotia. They look like, I don't know, like sea snails or something, little sea snails or whatever you might find inside like a aquarium. But yeah, these little black dots are dark, rustish, dots, these are indeed sclerotia. And as you can see, the colors are also quite funky colors. And again, on the newer side, the newer mycelium is actually quite white. These guys are also slower growing than the Florida grass lovers. So pretty much if you want sclerotia, that's what you want to grow them for, stick with Florida grass lovers. These guys are absolutely fantastic, or any of their derivative strains, like ATL number 7, Galindoy, pretty much those guys. So yeah, that's basically it. This is a good example of sclerotia right here. I will say that the Mexican grass lovers, the sclerotia, are actually tastier than the Florida grass lovers, but the yield is going to be so much less. You're going to have better efficiency using these guys. Now, finally, we can get to the myceliated grains. And now we have a quick message from our sponsor, me. I have had my YouTube channel taken down once now, and now my Patreon, which was my primary source of income to fund mycophilia. I have had it with big social media companies playing God, so I have decided to set up my own myco platform. On MycoSage, you can expect all the Patreon benefits such as free fruiting videos, monthly genetics, Discord benefits, and more. Sign up for the free tier for free videos and monthly giveaways, and the Mycophiles tier, that's the $4.99 tier, if you would like to access all of my videos, and the genetics tiers if you would like monthly genetics for your microscopy research, plus all Mycophile benefits. Genetic spots will open from the 1st to 4th every month or until the spots are filled. And every member, free or paid, will automatically be enrolled for our monthly giveaways. This month's giveaway is Rusty White Spores. Support MycoSage, support yourself, support myco independence. Back to the video. So myceliated grains are very, very, very interesting. And the concept, by the way, is the same. All you got to do is just inoculate a bunch of grains and just wait. And you guys will see what I mean with the myceliated grains soon enough. So I'm just going to move these guys out of the way. So mycelium looks pretty normal, looks the same, right? But no sclerotia. And these guys don't produce sclerotia. The thing about these guys is, this is it. You just inoculate it. It's not going to make sclerotia or anything like that. You just have to wait. The thing is, with myceliated grains, this is a new thing. And I don't mean like myceliated grains in themselves, because myceliated grains have been used in the supplement industry for a long time. And the mushroom, like some of the biggest supplement companies uses myceliated grains. And a lot of people complain that, oh, it's not using the fruit bodies of the mushrooms where you should have more of the medicinal alkaloids. Well, the thing is, that can be an argument for certain species. But also, on the other hand, certain other species, some of the medicinal alkaloids are going to be richer in the mycelium than the fruit bodies themselves. So, not only is it cheaper for the farm to farm mycelium rather than taking up space to fruit them as well, you're also going to be getting more of the flavonoids that you seek, more of the medicinal compounds that you're looking for. Now, having said that, most of the common medicinal species will have more alkaloids in the fruit rather than the mycelium, such as lion's mane and reishi. I generally recommend only getting supplements with fruiting bodies rather than mycelium. Now over here, I'm sure many of you guys have noticed, and some of you guys may be quick to say, oh, don't listen to this noob, there's contam. Well, the thing is, this is not contam, this is bluing. And why are they bluing? Well, because the mycelium itself is rich in flavonoid content. Now compare that, to these guys, right? There's no bluing involved. Now, that's not to say that core lovers, aka here, do not blue on their own, but usually the only time that they blue is when there's some kind of problem. When the mycelium is under some kind of stress, whether it's dryness or, even worse, contamination. These guys are bluing though because we have the agar wedge there, and the agar wedge is basically ground zero, right? So it's like the slowest, it's like the first point where it started colonizing, so it's the oldest. So what that means is, as it gets older, I don't know if you can see in the screen, but the mycelium is constricted more than other parts. See that? Mycelium is constricting. So what does it mean when it constricts? Well, it's just like when you touch a fruit and it bruises. You apply pressure there, so it bruises. It's the same thing. It's sort of squeezing itself. But this is also a good sign that there are good flavonoids in here already. So we could probably harvest these already, but I would wait a little bit longer. I'm going to get to that pretty soon. So as I said, guys, this method is not as tried and tested as the sclerotia, but it is effective. And so if you want to try something new, something that's sort of at the forefront, and I use quotes because it's not exactly new, but it's sort of, it's kind of like, you know, Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas, you know, it's like it was already there and people had discovered it, but like it's come to our attention that this is a viable method. So let's go over the common questions that people have of this technique. How long should you leave it in the jar? Okay, so again, there's not many tests done, but I have seen some tests that have shown that you don't really want to go past 2 months. You could, but there does not seem to be, at least at the current state of knowledge on these guys, much benefit to keeping them longer than 2 months. So by the 2 months point, you can harvest them. And in terms of flavonoid content, it seems to be about half the effectiveness of the fruit bodies of these guys. Now here's the issue though, the fruit bodies of these guys have been shown to have a huge disparity in the amount of flavonoids there are. So there's really no way to tell exactly how accurate that 50% figure is. So overall though, is it worth it? Compared to a regular core lover quart jar, let's say this guy, right? Let's say I go ahead and I fruit these guys. And I take the fruits and then I measure the flavonoid content in just a 2-month-old jar of Semps. How do they compare? I would just like to clarify that for the purposes of this comparison, I'm comparing the total flavonoid content of a core lover grow over the period of 2 months, so at least 2 flushes of fruits, versus the total amount of alkaloids produced by a Semp jar without spawning to bulk, aka just to colonize grains. The data that I am referring to here is from an ongoing experiment by a user named Reverend Mike on the Esmery. A link to the source will be provided under the resource section on my website. The good news is that these guys have been shown to be much richer in flavonoid content than these guys, which sort of makes sense because this is a much tastier species than regular core lovers that everybody grows. In fact, it's almost like it's over 1.5 times more flavonoid content overall in about the same time frame, and this takes a lot less space. So what you could do then is you could just basically dry them up and make a tea, or make capsules. You could grind them up, you could make jelly, you could do everything that you can do with regular core lover fruits that you can with these guys, and the same goes for sclerotia as well. Same goes for truffles. So it's very, very easy. You just need to inoculate and wait. And I will say though, the reason that I'm showing it with Semps, this is a very important point that I seem to have missed, is that this species in particular is, the mycelium is rich in flavonoid content. That's not the case for all species. Food lovers, not so. Core lovers, not so, although there is some, you know, for example, mycelium tea or cake tea, people have been doing that for decades, right? It's very hit or miss. You know, Florida grass lovers, Mexican grass lovers, not so much. They have sclerotia though. So you could eat this instead rather than the grains. But with these guys, you can use the grains, you can make tea, you can dehydrate them, as I said. Very, very simple. So basically what I want to say is just don't go doing this with all species of mycelium. I mean, you can, but you're not going to have much result. The reason this species has been chosen is because they are very good for that. So anyways, guys, thank you for watching. I suppose that's the video for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys on the flip side. Mycophile Sage, checking out for now. Bye-bye.